thank you all again for taking the time out of your evening to join us for what I hope is going to be an informative and interesting discussion covering the history of the associate specialist and specialist posts, what the eligibility criteria, how to meet the workforce need, and how to start discussions about the resources required to create specialist posts. And I think that given the crisis facing the NHS in Northern Ireland currently, we can't ignore the potential for this grade. Trish, if you could go back a few slides, I think there's been a bit of a there. So the next slide should be the timeline slide. No.
Is that it?
No. The one with the dates. On skip forward. There we are. Right. So sorry about that. Just to give you as a brief overview, so SAS originally stood for Staff Grade and Associate Specialist, but grouped together some other nationally recognised grades that some of you might remember, including clinical medical officers, hospital practitioners and clinical assistants. The clinical assistant grade was introduced in 1964, and that was following recommendations from in the Platt report in 1961. In 1981, that changed and developed into the associate specialist grade, and that was partly in response to an oversupply of senior registrars at that time, and those doctors were working at a high senior level. At that time, entry into the associate specialist grade required 10 years of experience, and many were working alongside their consultant colleagues on on-call rotas at that time. In 1988, the staff grade was then developed or introduced as the slot below the associate specialist grade, and that time it was in response to oversupply of younger trainees. And nationally, across the water, the number of SAS doctors rose very sharply from sort of 500 in 1991 to just under 3,000 in 1999. And I think currently in England, there are almost 20,000 SAS doctors now. In the last 20 years in Northern Ireland, SAS doctors have risen from about 300 to about 700. And we currently make up around about 23 of the overall substantive medical workforce in secondary care. So in 2008, new SAS contracts were launched, and there was the closure of the previous staff grade and associate specialist roles, and the introduction of a new specialty doctor grade. And there was a window of opportunity at that time for staff grades and pre-existing associate specialists to transfer or regrade to the new associate specialist contract. So since that time until we had the new contract negs in 2021, there's a big gap for recognition of senior experienced SAS doctors. And until that new contract, there was no formally recognised opportunity to transfer, despite many working at a very sort of senior level. And the new contracts in 2021 introduced shorter, flatter pay scales, some protections with out of hours, and then the reintroduction of a new, again, progression for highly experienced specialty doctors that we had been missing for so long. And so, Trish, if you can flick back to the one that had that one. Yeah, so despite, the one with the traffic lights. So despite the longevity of the role, there's still, or traditionally has been, much more emphasis on the traditional routes of training to CCT in either primary or secondary care. And for those of us in SAS grade, we can get quite frustrated and feel quite worn down when we're consistently overlooked, forgotten about, or just included as an other on tick box forms, etc. And mostly that comes down to the fact that this is the way it's always been done. And it'll be skip on, Trish, to the next slide, the one with the this way.
There you go.
Perfect. There's more than one way to become a doctor, and the SAS doctor is becoming known as a much more positive career choice. And thankfully we have, or at least should have, moved away from terminology such as non-consultant, middle grade, or even just SAS. And I'm very sorry, Trish. Now, if you could call me up that one with the elevator and the and the cliff face. So just to kind of give you a bit of a comparison of where sort of SAS doctors fit in, because they are part of the overall jigsaw puzzle when it comes to medical workforce. And it's not meant to be a static post. There's meant to be movement between the grades. So we are a permanent member of the medical workforce. There's national terms and conditions, but the SAS group is a very diverse group in terms of starting point at 4 years post-graduation. Some specialty doctors have been in the job over 25 years, and then the specialist posts 12 years plus, etc. And you can apply to be a SAS doctor from any previous level of experience as long as you meet the minimum criteria. To be a SAS doctor or a specialist doctor, you don't need to be on the specialist register, but about 10% of Northern Ireland SAS in a recent NIMDA survey have membership have their CCT, and about 75% of current Northern Ireland SAS have their membership exams and have chosen to become SAS doctors. And there's many reasons for that. A lot of SAS doctors like the direct patient contact, to focus on patients. Maybe it's subspecialty or geographical stability, having fixed hours and sessions to promote work-life balance. It's maybe to gain experience to enhance their ST application, or to study for membership exams, or to pursue a portfolio career and other roles within the health service. And that is one of the huge benefits of the SAS doctor, because it gives you the flexibility to progress at your own pace. You can remain as a specialty doctor, you can return to training, you can pursue the portfolio pathway to CCT, and about 23% of SAS doctors wish to do that portfolio pathway route. But the vast majority of us want to continue to work as a SAS doctor and to progress as a SAS doctor, and about 50% of the current SAS cohort are interested in looking to progress to specialist posts. Okay, Trish, sorry, I want to jump onto the ability, not grade one. So being a SAS shouldn't be a barrier to fulfilling a leadership role, and there are increasing numbers of SAS doctors taking on leadership roles locally, regionally and nationally. We have heard yesterday at NIMDA's event from a SAS doctor in the SCT who's been appointed as a service manager, to the like of Professor Jamie Reid, who is a SAS doctor who's currently the Dean of the Lincoln Medical School. So any role can be and should be achievable as a SAS doctor. And if you do see a role advertised that's not open to SAS, do ask why not, because often no one has thought, or they've just cut and pasted from a previous advert. Next slide, please. Despite that, a lot of SAS doctors who wish to progress to specialist roles still face many barriers, and that's usually due to a lack of understanding of the role, or lack of funding, or difficulties that the SAS doctor has in achieving study leave or the experience to gain the necessary skills to meet the capabilities framework. And hopefully that part of the conversation tonight will hopefully help start to change that. Next one, Trish. That was just a very brief overview of the previous historical contracts and the two current contracts. So we can skip on to the next slide. So this is an NHS employers infographic slide, just to explain a bit about what a specialist is. So they're a doctor or dentist who will provide expertise in a specialised area. So that might be delivering care in a specific specialty or in a generalist service, able to manage the full range of presentations in their specific area of practice. By definition, according to the job description, they are working autonomously, and that's within levels of defined competencies which are agreed within local clinical governance framework. So that might look different for different specialists in different roles in different trusts. And just to re-emphasize again, that's fine. You don't need to be on the specialist register, but some are. You don't have to have membership exams, but many do. And again, the BMA have some resources like this role comparison slide, which could be very useful when you're maybe a specialty doctor who's looking to talk to their CD or managers about why they feel they're already working as a specialist or at the specialist level, and where that differs then from the consultant role. They are primarily focusing on direct patient clinical care, meeting service delivery and improvement requirements, but the role of specialist should be supported by suitable development opportunities, including management, leadership, teaching, academia, service development. Same goes for specialty doctor, obviously, as well. And expected to be involved in training and leading MDTs. Okay, Trish, next slide. So in the 4 years since the introduction of the post, Northern Ireland has only seen the introduction of 38 specialist posts, and that is still sort of very much below the number of associate specialist doctors who are still in post. And just for comparison, England, there are approximately, at the last count, 2,800 specialists and only 1,200 remaining AS doctors, and that's say out of a total of 19,000 or thereabouts. So it is starting to pick up pace, but the pace of change is still very slow. Next slide, Trish. Just to sort of look back at a few figures, March 2008, just before the regrading exercise, you can see that sort of 22% of the SAS cohort at that stage were associate specialists. In 2010, after the majority of doctors had regraded, that had jumped up to 28% of the SAS cohort. And currently, due to that long drought period of not having the senior role, as associate specialists retired, moved on, that number sort of has dwindled down to currently sort of 10% of the SAS cohort as of last year being associate specialists, and last year we'd only 4% of specialists. So we've still got a wee bit of way to even catch up on where we were in 2008, never mind in 2010. Next slide, Trish. Thank you. So everybody on this call is very much aware of the crisis that is going on all around us every day at work. And staff shortages are one of the biggest challenges we face, along with the pandemic backlog, an increasing age of population, patients living longer with complex comorbidities, the changing demographics of the medical workforce, and the wider economic climate that we're all exposed to at the minute as well. So I'm looking at the Department of Health figures from last year. Around 60% of the current SAS doctors in Northern Ireland who are still employed on the 2008 SD contract, which make up that cohort on the 2008 contracts, are about 50% of the current SAS population in Northern Ireland, because there has been a lot of reluctance to move over to the 2021 contract because there's a lot of uneasiness about the change to plain time with it, and because of the difficulty in progressing and getting specialist posts. So of that sort of cohort of about half of the current SAS population, about 60% of those have at least 12 or more years experience, and there are 30 doctors on the 2021 SD contract with the same level of experience. So that cohort is there. They're ready to be recognised for the value and experience, and really must be part of the solution when it comes to looking at the workforce crisis that we're already there, or we're already in. Thanks, Trish. Next slide. Again, this is from NHS England, showing some of the organisational benefits for appointing specialists. So it all comes down to recruitment, retaining, redesigning and retraining. And those are the 4 R's of building a resilient workforce, emphasising the need to harness the potential of these experienced doctors. And this report after report has shown that supported, engaged staff equals better patient outcomes. And appointing specialists can only support the Trust's business needs. And the risks for the Trust of not doing this is that where other trusts introduce this, and Northern Ireland nowhere is too far away from anywhere else, but SAS doctors will leave the trust for more attractive career development in trusts that are providing that. And just to remind the trust, obviously, that specialist doctors are very good value for money, and the experience from England has shown us that trusts that employ specialists find it much easier to attract specialty doctors, and we've seen that here in the Royal with our ED rota. Next slide, Trish. So as a specialty doctor, these are the three things that need to be fulfilled to get a specialty doctor post created. You yourself have to be eligible and fulfill the criteria. There has to be a service need, and there has to be the resource available to pay for it. Next slide. So anybody who is familiar with specialist posts will be familiar of the generic capabilities framework, and this was developed at the time of the contract negotiations with input from Royal Colleges, BMA and NHS employers, and that creates a template across 6 domains, much like your appraisal that we're all familiar with, and then there's examples of how you can map your capabilities to each of those domains, and sort of things you would be expected to be able to achieve as a specialist doctor. Thanks, Trish. So you have to be proactive. Nobody's going to tap you on the shoulder and go, well, they might do, but the vast majority, as a specialist doctor, you're going to have to be proactive and look at how you can map what you're doing and document what you're doing. And you need to be able to hopefully use your job planning and appraisal cycle to help you achieve that. And there is multiple documents out there. The Academy of Medical Royal Colleges has a lot of documents supporting SAS development. Most of the colleges all have SAS committees and SAS leads. Locally, we have our own SAS leads in trusts, and NIMDA have got very exciting sort of career development plans that are available and that doctors have already benefited from. And look around you for the leadership opportunities. Start small, say yes, take on the roles that nobody else wants, like appraiser, M&M, QI, etc. And go on, next slide. So the SAS doctors as a group, we need to be better at speaking out about our role and our achievements. You need to keep a log book and a contemporaneous job diary. Doctor Diary is available free to BMA members, but other diaries are available. You need to document roles where you are working autonomously, or where you're supervising others. When people are examples of when people are asking for your advice in your specialist area of knowledge. You can present multi-source feedback as part of your evidence. What exams, what qualifications, what teaching, research, audit, leadership roles. Look for allies, other SAS doctors in your own trust across the region in the same specialty. Like I mentioned, the SAS leads. Hopefully this year we'll see SAS advocates start to be appointed. We've also got the BMA LNC reps, and we've got college SAS reps as well. So do look around, do shout about your successes as well. Next slide. This is the one where most SAS doctors are sort of hitting up against a brick wall and find difficulty in convincing their managers and their service leads that there is a workforce need. And that's particularly felt by those experienced SAS doctors who are already working at specialist level. So by definition, if you are already providing that level, I would suggest that the employer has a clear need for that post. And if you weren't undertaking that senior level work, who would they replace you with if you left? So if you feel that you're working beyond the role of a specialty doctor, then you must also understand the differences between the specialty doctor and the specialist roles, and identify those current roles and responsibilities that you are already sharing with the specialist role. Reassess any formal acting up arrangements that are informal. Review your job plan, and don't be afraid to dispute your job plan if necessary, and the BMA will support BMA members through job planning disputes. There are other ways of creating or showing that there's a workforce need. So as associate specialists retire, that's a very obvious no-brainer solution for the workforce need. So that shouldn't be one that would require much thinking about. But trusts can think out of the box as well. If there's a big locum consultant spend in your department, could that money be better spent funding a specialist post? And just looking at the workforce as a whole and trying to get more bang for your buck. Next slide, Trish. Thank you. And just to emphasize the funding and the modest increase that there is from the top of the specialty doctor role to the bottom of the specialist career, and how that compares then with the consultant salary scale. The creation of new specialist posts was factored into the overall cost modelling for specialists for contract reform, but money was not ring-fenced. And then that's trusts and in the current financial climate are having to look at their budget award. So the creation of specialist posts is considered individually on their own merits. It has to be based on a business case and the needs of the service. So it isn't an automatic regrading, but it is a very cost-effective solution to some very difficult staffing crisis. Next one, Trish. And look around, keep an eye out for adverts in other trusts, and SAS doctors will rightly vote with their feet to work for trusts that have track records in valuing their employers, and it can be used as a lever to initiate conversations and create a bit of traction within your own departments and trust. Next slide. So if you've proven that you're eligible, you've proven that there's workforce need and there's resources available, so what happens next? It is designed to be a competitive process, but that doesn't mean that the trusts can't advertise internally, recruit among their own staff first, and the competitive element in that case would come into the interview process. If they can't get enough SAS doctors to fulfill the specialist roles that are needed, or that they're looking for more, then trusts are now starting to recruit externally as well. Regardless of whether it's internal recruitment or external recruitment, there will be an interview process which will include clinical director, specialty lead, service manager, maybe even the SAS lead, or a SAS rep or a Royal College rep who may be their SAS lead. And it might include questions on competency, possibly even a presentation on a topic relevant to the specialty, with emphasis on management processes. Similar, I would imagine, to the consultant job process, and maybe in the question and answer session, Jazz, who's recently completed, can give us a few ideas on how that process was for him. So next slide, you'll be glad to know we're almost at the end. So just to sum up, just to emphasize that appointing specialist doctors is good for doctors, it's good for trusts, but most of all, it is good for our patients. And I will end my presentation there.